I'm Solène from Solène Knits, and today I want to tell you about swatching. I know that a lot of knitters don't like swatching because I get it, it takes some time and you're so excited about the new project that you want to start knitting it right away. But if you don't want to end up with a too big or a too small project, or if you don't want to have to rip off everything because you realize at some point that your colors don't go well together, swatching is the absolute necessary step to take to make sure that you end up with the perfect project. So a basic swatch looks like a square like this. So you start by knitting a square, then you wash and you block it, and finally you can measure the swatch to make sure that it's the same gauge that the one your pattern calls for. If you end up with a different gauge, there are three ways to go about it. You can either switch needle sizes, so you can go up or down a needle size to get the right gauge, or you can change yarn if really the gauge is so different. If you're substituting yarn in your pattern, maybe the yarn that you were thinking about doesn't work for that pattern. Or you can, if your pattern has multiple sizes, you can choose a different size than the one you're aiming at. So for example, I'm a quite loose knitter, so usually when I knit other people's sweater patterns, I choose a smaller size than what I'm aiming at. So I will knit an XS size, for example, to get an S. So that's the way you can go about it if you don't get the right size. And the fun part of swatching is that it's that time when you can experiment your knitting with your yarn and experiment the pattern and yarn combination, choose your different colors if you're doing stranded knitting or stripes, and that's really, for me, it's a really fun part. So I hope that you'll learn to enjoy it in the future as I do. So now that I've given you the basics, I want to give you also a few advices on the best ways to swatch. So if your pattern is a simple stockinette, textured or small lace pattern, you can do a basic square swatch. So I recommend doing it over 4 inches of wide and long, so you can properly measure it. For a swatch featuring a large cable or lace pattern, I recommend to swatch a whole repeat. So in this one, for example, I swatched a few repeats of the pattern to make sure that it looked good. I went a bit overboard with this one, but you can do them smaller, but try to swatch the whole repeat of the cable or the lace pattern that you're working with. Now if you're knitting in the round, I recommend doing a swatch in the round because your tension can be quite different in the round. So there are 2 ways to go about it. The first one is to knit a tube like this one. So that's a great way to swatch in the round, but it takes a bit more time and twice as much yarn to make a 4 inches wide swatch. The other method is to knit a swatch in the round but flat. So you knit only right side rows, but you keep your yarn behind the work. You carry your yarn behind. So this technique can be a bit confusing if you haven't done it before, so I'm going to quickly demonstrate it. So here I have a swatch that I'm knitting for a project in the round. So I'm doing simple stripes. So I'm gonna finish knitting that row. As you can see, it's a right side row. And then when I get to the end of my row, instead of turning the work like I would do if I was doing a simple flat swatch. I'm going to slide the stitches back to the other side of my circular needle, and then I'm gonna start knitting again here with the yarn that is attached on the other side. So I'm picking my yellow yarn here. So as you can see, I'm leaving a big strand of yarn behind, and I just start knitting here a new knit row. So at the end you will have those big strands behind your work, and you can simply, when you're finished with your swatch, you can simply cut them in the middle and lay your swatch flat like here. So those are the strands that were behind my work and that I cut. So now I'm gonna show you how to measure your swatch. So I'm gonna go back to that first big swatch because it's easier to show you. So you can either use a tape measure, or if you have one, you can use a ruler, made specially to measure swatch. So make sure that it's really laid out flat, but do not stretch it. And you can measure it's better to measure in the middle because the side stitches are often a bit distorted. So you can measure here. So here, for example, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches is 4 inches. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and a half rows equals 4 inches. So I hope that this was helpful. And that's it. I hope that you'll enjoy swatching more if you didn't like it before. And as they say, it takes time to save time, because if you learn to swatch properly, then you will never have to rip off a project just because it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out. And then you're gonna have a nice collection of little swatches like these to keep around. I love having mine on my desk so I can browse through them for inspiration every day. And I know that a lot of knitters also make gorgeous blankets out of their old swatches. So I hope that you'll have fun with your little swatches, and I wish you a very nice day. Thank you for watching.